I think when I was looking for different animals that could have been a part of a story, I really wanted something that was small, fluffy, adorable. And I was actually researching different small, fluffy animals and had never heard of a shrew before, which even now I think I feel a little bit surprised that I didn't know what one was. And I found out that shrews actually spend their whole lives starving because their metabolisms are so fast that they're constantly hungry for food. So it was actually more that discovering shrews and what they were ended up driving the story as opposed to looking for any animal that could have been the protagonist. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up with the shrew. Very much like, okay, these animals are totally ridiculous in their anatomy because they've got these teeny tiny eyes. They totally rely on their sense of smell to hunt. And I thought, well, what if they couldn't use their sense of smell? So I just ended up playing with this idea of what if it's a shrew that ends up with the flu and then has to learn to use the rest of its senses. And then the whole idea for the shrew with the flu was born. I think it's probably less about a shrew on its own, but the story of the shrew with the flu has probably taught me about self-awareness, moderation, that kind of thing, selflessness, I think. It feels a little bit ridiculous when you're the one that's written it to still be learning lessons from your own story, but the truth is that I don't think it was until after I'd written the story and read it back that I realized some of almost like the unconscious lessons that were buried within it. So this whole idea of actually, rather than constantly thinking about ourselves and what we want and what we need, how can we have more of a almost like a community mindset and think about what everybody needs and how we can share what's available and give back to the planet and be a little bit more empathetic and attentive, I think, to the people and world around us. I don't think I guess the mission of the Shrew the Flew in a weird way has snowballed since the start. Originally it was, oh, I've written this story and it was kind of for myself and maybe processing some of my own thoughts and feelings about the world. I didn't quite expect it to get picked up and almost become this mission to empower kids, I think, with the tools to go out and change the world around them, and also maybe with this story that could help them be more empathetic towards the planet and what's going on around us. So as I've then got further down the line with that, I've had my eyes opened, I think, to how incredible young people are. There's almost this sense of innate fearlessness in children where they're these totally honest kind of raw balls of emotion and empathy, and listening to the way that they describe the world and the way they engage with nature. I think it gives everybody hope. So if they taught me anything, it's probably that most of us start from a place of fearlessness and wanting the best for the world around us. And actually, if we nurture that a little bit more as we grow up and as we educate young people, then I think we end up with a better world, Annette. So I primarily do author visits to schools where we will go and we will start off by doing some doodles and drawings of animals that appear throughout the story. So we've got wiggly worms, slow motion snails, buzzing bees. You'll notice that they've all got the sort of actions or noises that go with them. So then I think kids almost find it a bit surprising how it then links in when we read the story and we all stand up and bring it to life with those different animals that we drew before. And then we tend to close off our sessions sharing our own stories from out in nature and kind of celebrating any of the children that have been in nature or helped wildlife and that type of thing. And then I'll always end with like a little Q&A and this type of thing where equally I think I'm probably asking as many questions of the kids as they are of me, just because they're normally quite inspiring themselves. I've got a few stories that are in the works. I can't give too much away, but there is a manuscript for The Mole and the Mound and the House Underground that is out there. And I've got a bunch of different stories that I've written that a lot of are really designed to kind of engage young people with nature, I suppose. I think that's almost ended up being a bit of a personal mission of mine with my work. So there are definitely sequels and more stories. It's just a case of holding on and waiting for them to come and find their way into the world. I I almost I always look at it as a three-pronged attack. We've got legislation and regulation, what all of the big boys are doing up top that the water falls down through everybody else in society. I think you've then got the grassroots, which is kind of where I sit of the bottom up approach of how have you got all of the young people out there thinking about nature and engaging in it and feeling empathetic and striving to be self-aware, I think, and conscious of what's going on around them and the decisions that they make in their day to day. And then the third one, I think, is almost the private businesses and the our own personal consumption and this type of thing. So yeah, I would always say law, regulation, that type of thing, the grassroots, the bottom up, what we're all thinking, how we engage and are educated. And then the third thing is almost like the personal responsibility and accountability of private businesses.